I hope everyone can hear me well. Welcome to the fourth discussion meeting, open discussion meeting, with the title this time, What is the practice about? Maybe just some introduction things before, a few different things. So first of all, I changed a tiny bit the system here with Zoom, which is not a big thing, but a thing that is improving a bit the discussion, because there's this webinar function in Zoom that makes sure that only I can start my video, which I will not do for these discussions because it's just audio. Because the last times we had this problem that for some people it was a new system, and suddenly they started the video or shared the screen or something like this. So to prevent this from happening, I switched to the webinar function, and you can still say something. You just have to raise your hand as before. There's still the raising the hand function. And then I can first give you I can allow you to speak, basically. It's called here, it's a function, so you cannot unmute yourself before I allow you to speak, which allows us also to have everything very orderly. And I also did this because I might post the link publicly to prevent any Zoom bombing, which was a thing coming up in the last days or weeks. Maybe you heard something about this. If you looked a bit into Zoom, if you look at how it works, Zoom got a lot of shit in the last days and weeks. First of all, because of this, because if you post the link publicly, like basically anyone can come in. So if you use the webinar function, that's not a problem, because I can always throw someone out. And I don't think for us it will happen or it's a problem, but it's just some precautions. And then this is still an ongoing discussion. How is Zoom with the data? Because Zoom is not end-to-end encrypted, which means Zoom themselves on the servers, they can basically enter the broadcasts. Since we are not discussing anything here that is not going to be posted publicly anyway, because I'm recording this and I'm posting it on YouTube, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because it's basically an open call anyway. But obviously for things that are more, that should be more discreet, more secret, I don't know, for this, it is something to consider and to think about. Yeah, I looked a bit into alternatives to Zoom. There are some alternatives. The ones where I had the feeling you can fully trust are usually technically not working so well. So if it's like open source or something like this, I recently had the same thing happening, or I looked into the same thing with chats, like with an alternative to WhatsApp, and I found something that is open source, that is super safe, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the problem was just it didn't work. So this is a bit unfortunate, because there's this stuff that works very, very well, like Zoom, like every 80-year-old can join a Zoom meeting. It's no problem. Everyone is able to do this. You need no technical proficiency, but there is also a price for it, which is double with Zoom, because I pay to use Zoom, and then also the data is at least not protected from Zoom. I hope that they get so much pressure by the public that they will create an end-to-end encryption. So let's see. But I looked for alternatives, but most of the alternatives I don't really trust that they are better, or they're just technically difficult to use. I might be also just lazy and biased, who knows. Good, there was one thing about Zoom. Then another thing is that maybe you saw already, we started this challenge, this coordination challenge, where we post the coordination every day. Basically, I will post 2 videos every day. One video of the coordination and then a video with regressions, progressions, and variations. Yeah, you can find this on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. So YouTube is obviously the most easy to enter if you don't have an account. That's why I decided also to post it on YouTube. So I don't force, like that I force, but I don't tell anyone, hey, you have to have an Instagram account to participate, because that's definitely not something I want. As you might be aware of, if you know a bit already of my work, that I'm very cautious with the use of social media, but it can be also very nice if it's something like this, where people sit at home a lot, have not so much physical contact to people. So good, then I thought it's a good opportunity to use this to help people do something and to have fun, because I think it will be lots of fun. And the videos show me and show Mariana, which is a very, very good friend of mine, my sister in spirit, and who's also training with us for a long time now. Exactly. Good. And in the last times, in the last meetings, we talked mainly about economics in a way. And I first thought I will continue with this. And because I have some open threads there. We opened some thoughts that we didn't go into it, that still need to be explored. But then my plans changed a bit, because one of my students, Alain from Paris, he invited me to a Zoom call with his students. So, and I spoke a bit about the philosophy and the approach. And one of the students asked if there's any resource that she could give to people to understand better what is this about, and blah 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 blah. And it's not so easy to give like one resource, like, okay, read this or watch this video and so on and so forth. It's a mix that you have to go through, a mix of written material, of videos. If you just want to explore it on your computer, of course, the best is always to experience it. Of course, no video, no text can give you the experience. Yeah, but let's say you want to show it to your parents, your children, or your friend that will just not do it, but wants to understand what you're doing. Okay, so I was thinking about it and realized, yeah, okay, it's a bit tricky, because there is no resource that I would say, just look at this and then all your questions are answered. And then I thought, okay, maybe I can help a bit, I can contribute a bit. I will not create the resource here, but I want to use this and the next meetings to talk about what is this practice and what is it about, and also use your help, guys. Like, help me to create this together with you. So feel free always to raise your hand and to say something. You can also write something in the chat. And here in this webinar function, there's also this ask a question function. So this you can also do. It's quite nice, this function. Okay, yeah, so that's the idea. I want to give an idea of a glimpse of what this practice is about. So let's start. And let's start very, very at the beginning. So I call what we're doing practice, but also I use synonymously with this the word training, or you could also say exercising, whatever. It doesn't matter so much, but what I want to say is something ongoing, is something where you are changing, and it's not something that is a project that you do and then it's finished. Although you might dive into this practice for some time in your life, and then you might stop and live your life differently. But the practice in itself is, the idea is that you could do this for your whole life. And that's why it's also the concept is very open. The concept of the practice is very open. So practice means to work on yourself, you could say, or to change. And something I see as very fundamental is to take action. In German, we have a nice word that is could be translated as taking action or action. It's called handeln, or the noun is Handlung. So maybe you hear that it's very close to the word handling. So both comes etymologically from the word hand. So handeln means to do something with the hands, you could say. But we use this word as to take action. I like this word because it's physical. Yeah, you do something with the hand, and many of the words that we have, and this is in German especially, are based on physical actions. And in German, a huge chunk of the words that we use are based on the basic actions or positions, which is sitting, standing, lying, and walking. So we use these 4 words in many variations and create a huge pool of verbs from this. Yeah, and in English it's similar, just in English there are so many words from a Latin origin that it feels a bit less than in German. So taking action, what does it mean to take action, or why is it important? Let me make a connection here to the work of Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, he has an essay that is called Was ist Aufklärung? In English, what is enlightenment? So in this essay, he discusses what does it mean, enlightenment, what is it? So not enlightenment in the spiritual Buddhist way, but enlightenment as the time era in Europe, or the philosophical era that our approaches today are very much based on. Yeah, which is in German it's called Aufklärung. We have 2 different words for enlightenment in the spiritual way. Here in German is called Erleuchtung, and the philosophical era enlightenment is called Aufklärung. So in this essay, he says that enlightenment means to get conscious of your ability to use reason, of your ability to be reasonable, to use reason, or ratio, you could also say, and from there act. And I like this pretty much how he wrote this, and I see the practice in connection to this. I see the practice as making yourself conscious of your ability to act. So becoming conscious of your ability that you can act. Why is this important? Because in our society, we often might forget about this ability to act. We might forget about our ability to create change. I recently posted an essay about it, which is called Physical Training, Crafting and World Experience. It's available in German and English, where I talk about the differences between a training where you change yourself and a practice where you change things around you. Like, for example, through push-ups, you are changing yourself, like you change yourself on a physical level, but also on an emotional level, you can create change, yeah, on a spiritual level. Let's say you feel, I don't have energy, I feel a bit grumpy, and then you do some push-ups and suddenly you feel better, which can definitely happen. So you realize, oh, I can take action. I have the power to change myself. It's not just the outside coming onto me and deciding my life, putting my life into certain paths, but I have some power as well. Not unlimited power, by far not, yeah, because we are very much not just interconnected with the environment, we are the environment. So we are constantly in reciprocity with the environment. We are constantly in connection and changing each other. I change myself and the environment is also changed through changing myself, or I change the environment and this has also a backlash onto me. I will also be changed by changing the environment. It's almost impossible to find the right words in language, because we have, in the sense, our language is a bit dualistic in this, although in reality it's not. This dualism is very foggy, you know, like we have the feeling, yeah, this me and this environment, but at the same time this is not the case because we're so interconnected. So through the practice you should get conscious of your ability to take responsibility. And this can be the responsibility for yourself, or this can be the responsibility for the world that is around you, which again is also at the same time yourself, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but usually I would say there is taking care of the world and there's taking care of yourself. And if you put this into a good balance, then you live a very nice life. But if it's out of balance and you just only take care of yourself, or you only take care of others, for example, and you never look for what do you need, you can burn out or feel very meaningless, because you're not bringing these responsibilities into balance. And in our practice, we are trying through different principles, ideas, and method and exercises to basically exercise this ability to take responsibility. So an example can be on the physical layer of taking care of yourself on the physical layer. So I take responsibility for my health, for example, yeah, which is also something that we often give away. And last time I talked about this metaphor from Josef Fruček about the being in Siberia, where you have no hospital very close by. Yeah, so to take responsibility for yourself, and we live in a wonderful time where there is a lot of possibilities in medicine, but it doesn't mean that I give my responsibility away now to medicine. Yeah, it's just something, it's like a layer of safety added, let's say. But the first layer of safety is myself, that I take care of myself. When I cross a street, I look left and right, so I'm not run over. Yeah, I make sure I'm not deteriorating physically, because, for example, when you just work at the desk, what you're doing is, yeah, you are losing muscle mass, you are your bones will become less dense, more soft, and so on and so forth. You are deteriorating if you sit the whole day. So doing physical exercise is a good way to work against this deterioration, because you are getting out of balance from sitting so much. So you're rebalancing yourself, you're taking care of yourself, you're taking responsibility of yourself. So you don't have to run to a doctor more than needed. And also you have a higher energy, you can help other people better, so you can take care of other people, and so on and so forth. My sister-in-law, it's called sister-in-law, yeah, sister-in-law, she's a doctor, and now because of the coronavirus, she is not working so much because she is in, yeah, anyway, I forgot now what her expertise is, but she's not working with corona patients. So she told me, yeah, now it's not that they need to, not that they decided to work less, but there are just much less patients coming. And her comment was that, yeah, probably, or maybe this also shows that many doctor visits are actually not so urgent. And I think many doctors have this feeling that a lot of people come with things that are not so urgent. Like, I think most here that are listening will go to a doctor when it's urgent and not at every little thing. But I know also from like having 2 children that there is sometimes this discussion, shall we go to a doctor or shall we not go to a doctor? And we definitely went a few times to a doctor when it was more like a check, like if everything okay, and everything was always okay. So it's nice, it's very nice to have this possibility to go to a doctor, but it's also good to to take the responsibility yourself, which would be, for example, for us in case with the children, is we have a big book about things that children have, diseases and sicknesses and so on and so forth. So this is always our first go-to. We look into this, and there is written, okay, if the child has this and this and this, then go to the doctor tomorrow. If the child has this, go immediately. If the child has this, yeah, you don't have to go. To take a bit less strain on the medical system. So you can take care of yourself physically, you can take care of yourself cognitively, you can take care of yourself spiritually, and so on and so forth. As we are beings that are not stiff, not solid, we are constantly changing, we can also guide this change. As we are constantly changing, even staying the same is, in a sense, a change. But let's get back to the idea of what do I do if I sit mainly at the desk? And how do I rebalance myself? Okay, so I can do some physical exercises, and I can make sure I do the exercises in a way that they really help me. For example, some strength training would be good, but also what can be very, very, very beneficial is some coordinative training, to also have some physical cognitive challenges, and to have this mind-body connection, to not just work with the mind in the mind, let's say, but to work with the mind to exercise my mind also on the physical level, which I think is very, very powerful and often or maybe not understood enough. Yeah, people do Sudoku and all this stuff, all sorts of mind exercises, learning a language, and so on and so forth. And that's all nice, but something like solving physical riddles that often, for example, come up when you craft something, you want to create something, and you have to think, you have to imagine what will happen if I do this, blah, 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 because you don't want to do a mistake. This is really using your mind very strongly. And yeah, as I said, it's often underused, like these things like learning new movements, coordinations, solving physical problems, crafting, and so on and so forth. So through this action that we take, we can guide the direction where we are going. So we can also develop ourselves in a way. So instead of just doing the same exercises all like day in and day out throughout the years, like always doing push-ups and squats and the same stretch and with the same intensity and so on and so forth, which is in a sense not very similar, not very different from sitting around all day. Why? Because yes, it is rebalancing the sitting, but at the same time it is static. It is static because you do the same all the time, and doing the same all the time is hurting ourselves because we are changing being. It numbs our mind. So if you do new things, if you change the things regularly, then you will stay, I think, more alert in a way, more like awake and not sleepwalk through life. And this is also, again, taking responsibility, understanding that you can take action and you can guide also the path that you are going through life. Again, not fully, by far not, but you can also have one hand on the handle, not just the environment around you that is steering the ship. So a practice in the way that we understand it means that you are challenging yourself regularly, so that there is a change happening that you also guide through the way that you challenge yourself, and through that explore this life and explore this world, because you live in a miraculous world that is just here, and you are just here, and we have a limited amount of time to explore this world. Some have less time, maybe they die in an accident or from a disease when they are 30. Other people have 80 years, 90 years, 100 years. But if you think about it, what is all there to discover in this life, then 100 years are not enough. So yeah, we cannot explore everything, we cannot discover everything, but now we can say, okay, then I don't do anything. Or we can say, yeah, but I'm still like very, very interested, so maybe I need to choose a bit, or just realize, okay, I cannot learn every language on the planet, but I can look into some, and I can really take responsibility for my life, and also show gratitude that I'm alive and that I live in a miraculous world. For me, with my children, and now it came again with my second child, which is now 3 months old, with my daughter, that is such a magic thing. Suddenly she's in this world. Suddenly she's like, just suddenly she's there. First she developed in the womb of her mother, and then she came out into this world, and now she's here in this world. And it's with all of us is the same. Yeah, doesn't matter if you're 20 or 80 years old, but you are just basically here for not long already. Yeah, it's like if you compare to how old the world is, the billions of years that the world is old. And just here for a glimpse of time, suddenly, like, I can glimpse into this world. What is there? What is there to explore? And I realize I can also guide my footsteps and see what I can explore in this world. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so practice in that sense, for me, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a goal. And I have talked about this before already, about the different orientations. Are you more goal orientated or process orientated or being orientated? I think it's very nice to have something to work towards, but with the approach of caring about the path, which is not always the case and doesn't always need to be. Some things we just do because we are interested in reaching that goal, in achieving this, and we are not so interested in how and experiencing the path. That's fully okay. With other endeavors, we can much more explore how the path is and stay with the path. But to reach goals is always just to reach something on the path and you continue walking. It's like in the end of the day, in the evening, you arrive at the place where you stay for the night. And then on the next day, you pack your things again and you continue to walk. And the third one that I added is to be being orientated, which means to really be in the present moment without the longing to be somewhere else. And this is the rebalancing that I think is needed to the process orientation, because you can get very much lost in a practice that is process orientated or worse, goal orientated, and basically forget about the present moment. And the idea of doing nothing that I have a YouTube video about, there's nothing to do, it's called. The idea about doing nothing is exactly this rebalancing between this being in the present moment, realizing everything is okay, there's no problem to solve. And then on the other hand, to take action and to solve problems, riddles, to experience, to show your gratitude for the world through taking action. And this is the balance, like your gratitude through life, for life, through just being in awe in the present moment and just listening or observing or just being there, and your gratitude towards life through taking action and participating and changing yourself, changing the world, taking responsibility. So this is the basic philosophy of the practice. And another noun that I want to add that I think is coming up very often when we talk about the practice is freedom. Because through the practice, you open lots of doors of freedom. You know, it can be physical abilities, like things that you can now do that you couldn't do before, or cognitive things, maybe a new language that you learn that provides you more freedom in conversation, or the peace of mind that you get through meditation, which is creating a certain freedom as well, or this ability to do nothing, to just sit down and do nothing, which is a huge freedom. that many people don't realize they have it, because in our society, many people think they're ants, not humans, and they have to do things all the time and cannot sit still. And even their sitting still is putting things in, like watching TV or something like this, which is not doing nothing. Watching TV is not doing nothing. Sleeping is also not doing nothing. Doing nothing is just to sit there, and that's it. You don't create any extra stimulus, and you don't sleep. You're just there. And this is a huge freedom. The freedom that you get through being healthy or mobile, yeah, or happy. The freedom that you gain through happiness, because you just feel good. You just feel good physically, emotionally. Being happy creates a tremendous amount of freedom, although it can be also very nice to be sad. Of course, it is very nice to be sad. We love to be sad from time to time, or we love to be frustrated, although we don't say it. Yeah, we think, it's so terrible, I'm frustrated. But in a sense, we also feel very alive when we are frustrated. Not when we are frustrated our whole life, or when we're sad our whole life, but when we just go through the emotions that we have, and then we're sad sometimes, and sometimes we're frustrated, and then we're happy, and so on and so forth. But an underlying happiness, which doesn't necessarily mean that you are all the time like yeah like this, which it can be, but it doesn't need to be. It can be also the German happiness, which is that your mouth is basically like horizontal, it doesn't go down the cheeks. It's just in the normal neutral position. That's German happiness. Yeah, this is more like a bit like tranquility. Okay, good. Everything is fine. Everything is good. Yeah, maybe not extremely exuberant, but good. And this is from there we have more freedom to take action, because someone that is frustrated is often in this mode of saying, no, this I don't want to do, I cannot do this, and blah 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 blah. And that's why meditation can be so powerful to open this door to more freedom, because you realize things that are happening to you, that you say maybe yes to things where you want to say no, or you say no to things where you want to say yes, or you feel, or you get sort of caught by things that you actually, there's no reason to get caught by it. Yeah, like someone told you what you did was what you did was shitty, and then you are very frustrated and annoyed and yeah, and it occupies a lot of your energy and your time, whereas you could just realize, okay, yeah, maybe he's right. Is he right? Yeah, maybe not. Just reflect on it. Okay, what happened here? Okay, and to continue with this insight that you got from the reflection into the situation. So I was tempted in the last weeks to call the practice that we are doing, to call it freedom practice or freedom practices. Everyone that I told this told me it's a very shitty name, and I should not call it like this, because it sounds too new age. So, okay, for now I will listen and not call it in this way. All right, but it could be like synonymously, it could be called like this. Not because I don't want to say that it is just about freedom, but it's a thing that comes up all the time. It's also about like the other things I said, like responsibility, blah 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 blah. But freedom is coming up very often when I ask people, what is the practice doing for you? What is the main thing? What did you get from the practice? And then many people talk with me about freedom. So I feel that's definitely an important noun to discuss when we talk about the practice. For me, freedom also means to reflect on things that we are doing in our world and in our society. And it's something that comes very natural for me, that I observe and I see what people are doing, and I also want to see, okay, what are different ways to approach this. Yeah, for example, we are all wearing shoes when we are out most of the time, but why? You know, when you're on a patch of grass, why do you need to wear shoes? Are shoes really always needed? Or is it maybe also just a thing of society that when we see someone that is barefoot, we think, that's a bit weird, or he's dirty, or the homeless guy that has no shoes, and so on and so forth. People can think lots of things about people that they see walking barefoot when it's not a typical barefoot place like the beach or something like this. Yeah, people can be very confused by this, although it's just a convention. There are all these conventions in our society, and I want to explore with people also these conventions. Okay, do we need to, in Germany, always eat bread in the evening? Do we need to always wear shoes? Do we always need to wear nice things without holes or something like this? Yeah, or what is the way that we need to speak with other people? What are the conventions here? And blah 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 blah. Or in training, yeah, this is a big thing as well. The conventional training, you all know, is like being in the gym and on machines and doing this stuff. If you're maybe, for example, just outside somewhere and doing some exercises that also look a bit weird, they're not from the textbook of exercising. It's not push-ups and sit-ups and squats, but other stuff, then that's pretty unconventional. Yeah? Maybe then people will try to put it into a convention. And this is happening to us for so many years that people ask, what are you doing? Is it Qigong? Is it Capoeira? Is it martial arts? And so on and so forth. There was one girl asking us, and I found this pretty funny. She asked us, we were doing some stuff that was sort of looking like Tai Chi, Qigong things. It was like taken from these disciplines. And she asked us, are you doing some Qigong stuff, yoga stuff, or is this a fusion thing? And I looked at her very confused because I never heard this expression like a fusion thing. And I looked at her just so confused and not moving. And then she said, yeah, it's a fusion thing. And I liked it. It's a fusion thing, yeah. But in a sense, it's not a fusion thing because it's not about arbitrary combining things, but it's more about finding the essence of all this stuff and then also being able to really go into these disciplines. Not just working interdisciplinary, but also if you want to go into a discipline and to go into fully. Fundamentally, I would want to work with people first, generally holistic, like spreading a map on the table and showing, hey, here's this place, here's this place, there are all these places, they're connected here, you can go from here to there, and so on and so forth. But then when people got this general idea, why would you not go into something and go into a discipline, like devote a lot of your time for Tai Chi, or devote a lot of your time to learning languages, or music, or push-ups, or whatever. From my perspective, this is definitely something very, very very powerful. And this has been a discussion recently. I posted the video on movement diversity, and then some people asked about exactly this. Okay, what's the relation between like practicing very diverse and practicing more focused, more one thing? And I provided also an answer video on YouTube. So if you're interested in this, you can look at it. So yeah, as I said, you develop yourself generally, but if you care about a discipline, of course, go into this discipline as well. The thing that I just observe is that many people never got a general overview. They got a very shallow or very more restricted general overview in school, which is restricted on certain topics. It's not the general overview that I would think is a real general overview, because so many things are missing there, and so many things that are taught in school are really not general, because the way they are taught is too disconnected. It's too specific already. So it is about the balance of the general and specific. And think about general also not in terms of weeks or months, but years. Like, it doesn't mean you have to do everything always at the same time, but throughout your life, you get also a general perspective of life, which I see for myself also in this way. I will practice for my whole life. For my whole life, I will explore. And I also see this in my mother, for example. She's also practicing her whole life. She's always doing something. For some time, it was languages for her, and still is. She speaks, I think, 7 languages. Now it's gardening, and I see she's getting very, very proficient in gardening, and that's also a very general topic, and so on and so forth. She's always also exploring things. So you will never explore everything, but our idea is, with the practice, is that we look for what is general, and from where can we go, where can we go from there? But it will never be the general things. It will always be chosen. It will always be chosen. And if someone else creates a general practice with the same approach that we have, it will still be very different. He will still choose different things. I think there will be connections, there will be things doing the same, but the details will differ, definitely. Okay. Do you have something for me? A thought, a question, an idea? Yeah, okay. If everything was clear, then everything was clear. But if someone has something to add, to say, a question, feel free to do this. And also, Peter, yeah. Now you should be able to speak if you...
Yes, I think so. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. From a perspective of somebody who maybe who doesn't train at a facility like yours, or who doesn't have one near them, have you got maybe an idea how you can approach constructing a more generalist training perspective or way of training? How you can how to start with that? If you, let's say, if your practice so far consists mostly of, like, as you said, traditional strength work or yoga, or some very specific workout, how you could start looking into more general things without losing yourself directly, because there's so much.
Yeah, good question. Very, very difficult to answer, actually, because it is a very complex topic, and in a sense, it takes some time to see the things in the jungle. First, you're thrown into the jungle and you see only green, and then through time you learn to see all the nuances in the jungle. But it's a very long path, I think. But I would say, as a principle that helps, just start with something that is currently missing from your practice, and this will bring you to the path of working more general. So let's say, as an example, someone is doing strength training and endurance training. What is missing from his practice? Now you get 10,000 answers. You can, all sorts of things. You could stay physically, and you could say, yeah, he's not doing any mobility, or he's not doing any coordination work, or he's not doing softening work. Yeah. But you could also say, but he's not doing any meditation, so to go more cognitively. Or maybe he's not reading, or maybe he has no experience with singing, and so on and so forth. You see, it could be all sorts of things, and it really, in the beginning, doesn't matter. But I think the easiest for people would be, what sort of practice are they doing? So if someone is doing like a physical training, to stay for the very beginning within this practice and to just look for, what am I not doing? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I guess that can be done in any practice. Let's say someone is practicing writing, and then he looks, is there a certain form of writing that I'm not doing? So I can become a bit more general writer also. Yeah, and this will probably also help my more specific writing that I maybe specialized in, and so on and so forth. And then later, I would also suggest to look also further than this discipline that you started from, and see also, like, to broaden the picture a bit, to zoom a bit more out. Okay, I was writing. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of writing. Okay, yeah, I'm not physically active. Okay, so I will start with this, with just something, and from there, something else, and so on. Because it is an exploration that is hard to hold, to grasp, to hold in your hands in the beginning. It's more like you pull yourself on a rope, and there's always new things coming up on this rope. Make sense?
Yeah, totally. Thanks.
Cool. Anything else, guys? Peter, yeah. I was waiting for you to say
something. Short question. I also this theme of exploring so many different modalities, both the cognitive, the physical, and if we just stay inside the physical, or kind of the embodied practices, there's strength, coordination, hand balancing, so many different things, and I I've consistently been strength training for a very long time, and sometimes criticize myself a lot that I'm spending too much time like with those silly weights, and I'm kind of longing for finding some logical way to give specific time and effort to certain exercises for certain periods of time. For example, deadlifting for a month, or doing a squat challenge, or doing whatever, something, and then leaving it. And I'm just kind of, there's this kind of dull magnetic pull that I spend if I'm just training alone, instead of structuring serious and varied movement practice. I'm just kind of ending up lifting weights a lot of the time when I'm training alone, but longing for something more. I don't know if I'm just, I don't know why, but I guess I'm looking for inspiration as how to be more guided amidst all the options, and not staying at kind of the lowest denominator of just lifting heavy things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can fully relate to your feeling. So yeah, maybe just about my situation, just for a moment, because I was doing also lots of strength for many years, like also really a lot, and got, I would say, quite far in this realm of like body weight, strength exercises, and so on. And then after I did so much, I, in a sense, almost completely stopped. And now, like really, like did like very little strength training for the last years. I had like phases, of a month here and there where I did a bit more again. And this was basically the rebalancing I felt to all the strength training. I needed, like, the rebalancing that came out of me was really doing it not so much anymore. And now I developed a relationship with it, which is using it and enjoying it. And I know the benefits, like about how I feel, and also the health benefits, the physical benefits, if you do it in this way and not too extreme. But it's not anymore, for me, it's not anymore a main thing of my practice, by far not. But it was also for me an interesting thing happening in myself, because so many people are coming to me and are interested in the strength thing, and I'm not at an ability anymore. Like I can still do things, and blah blah blah, but I'm not at the super high ability anymore where I could do like one-arm chin-ups and something like this, which is very impressive, and so on and so forth. And it was working in me. It was interesting. Like, okay, yeah, I'm losing this. What does it do? Like, how important is it for me? Because it can be used as a way to show, hey, I'm proficient at what I'm doing because I know how to do this. But at the same time, it took way too much time. This very high level, it just took too much time to hold it. And you have to do too many trainings during the week to hold this high level. And I didn't want to be a strength, someone that is like doing very general practice, but with a specificity in strength. So I basically, you did the way of doing it so much that I got uninterested in it, and now came to a point where I use it the way that is good and interesting for me, and also making sure I can show the stuff that I think I want to, that are important for me, because I still like to bring people quite far, so they explore this once in their life at least, because it's very powerful mentally and spiritually, this, because it exactly creates this feeling of, oh yeah, you can achieve difficult things. But for me, what you say, feels also like maybe it might be good to get some external loop, in a way that to get some exercises from someone, or to get some guidance from someone, because if you fall back into your own choosing and then you choose the same that you always chosen before, and to break this pattern up, why not get some teaching or guidance from someone that you think is interesting and you would want to look into. But maybe it's also good to explore the what is like to do it as a meditation. What's happening? Why are we sometimes going for this that we are used to do, or that feels maybe more easy for us, like the wall is lower to jump over, like it's cognitively it's easier for us to do something that we already know. Does it make sense for you?
Yes. Yeah, I think the external loop is a great idea, because it seems like even though I feel like there's a lot of inspiration coming from outside by like following your work, listening to many podcasts, reading books and things, it's like actually transferring it to a practice that makes sense for me, and that is also adapted to me. I don't know, it makes sense that it's like I'm not really man enough to, or not capable of creating the inspiring practice I imagine all the information would be worthy of.
I fully understand, and I also have this sometimes, that I feel I would like to do this, but then I catch myself half a year later and realize, oh, I didn't do this. Or I have also some things where I know I want to do this, but I cannot do now. Like I don't have, it's not fitting now. I know that this is something for later. But other things I feel, okay, like if I can get some more guidance from outside here, then that will probably help me to get into the habit, like depending on how difficult it is. Like some things is very easy to start by yourself, and other things are just more complicated, and you just need the constant guidance. So I'm always like learning from someone, also going somewhere that is also guiding my practice. I guide my practice also myself, but I also let my practice guided by someone, and sometimes more, sometimes is less. I personally usually have a lot of time that I also guide myself, but there's always the time in like every week where I learn something from someone external. And best, of course, some dynamic learning, like not from a book, but yes, from a real person. Good. Okay, we are 12:37, so we are already a bit over an hour. If the people that are listening to this, like now live or the recording later, if you come up with more questions, something that helps me also to see what are the questions about the approach, about the practice, what should I explain to you, how we approach things, and through that also help more and more people to understand what's happening, and helping to make this a resource for people that can listen to it, or that I can maybe later put into a text form or something like this. So to just have another resource that helps people not searching for hours throughout the internet, but something more clear where people can, okay, listen to this or read this, and this already gives you a glimpse. Good. Okay, so I will be out, and I'm happy to get questions. And next week we will continue, and we will continue our discussions. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the participation, for listening, and also saying something. And goodbye. Have a good day.